The government sets out its plans for cutting carbon emissions to zero by 2050. Ministers have described the measures as simple and fair and include plans for a big push towards electric vehicles.
Green is good. Green is right. Green works.
Homeowners in England and Wales will get £5,000 to help replace old gas boilers with low-carbon alternatives. But critics say the strategy lacks ambition.
To be honest, having heat pumps in a home that is poorly insulated is like buying a teapot with cracks in it. It's inefficient, it's leaky, and it's a waste of money.
Well, we'll have the very latest from Westminster and from our environment analyst. Also this lunchtime, an inquiry finds that child abuse allegations against the late Labour peer Lord Janner were not properly investigated because of multiple failures by police and prosecutors. A devastating suspected gas explosion in Ayr destroys a house and leaves 4 people in hospital. The elder brother of the Manchester Arena bomber Salman Abedi leaves the UK after being ordered to appear this week at the inquiry into the attack. And the man with kidneys weighing 5 stone who's had life-changing surgery to remove them.
And coming up on the BBC News Channel, Scotland are in action at the T20 World Cup against Papua New Guinea as they aim to qualify for the Super 12 stage.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the BBC News at 1. The government has set out a roadmap for cutting carbon emissions to zero by 2050, which ministers claim will support nearly 500,000 jobs over the next few decades. The plans include millions of pounds to subsidise the cost of electric vehicles. The government also wants to end the sale of gas boilers by 2035. People in England and Wales will be offered £5,000 grants from next year to replace their gas boilers with low-carbon heat pumps. Critics, though, say that is not enough. Here's John Donnison.
Engineers in Chesterfield this morning being trained how to install heat pumps. Over the next few years, they can expect to be busy, with the government hoping gas boilers can be phased out completely by 2035. Heat pumps work by extracting warmth from the air, the ground or water. They're a bit like a fridge operating in reverse and are powered by electricity.
If you want to reduce your carbon emissions, it's probably one of the simplest and quickest ways to make a big reduction in that, perhaps similar to an electric car. But also, in terms of running costs, although they are more expensive to purchase than a gas boiler, you can get immediate savings from having a heat pump installed.
So this is where the actual hardware is located.
Richard Hedden installed a heat pump in his house 7 years ago.
I can safely say it's been the best thing we ever did. I mean, the house is constantly at a pleasant temperature. It's not boiling hot, but it's very livable.
And from next April, people will be able to apply for a £5,000 grant to help them pay to replace an existing gas boiler with a heat pump. It's part of a £450 million package announced by the government. But that's only enough to cover a maximum of 90,000 pumps, while there are around 25 million gas boilers in UK homes.
It's like we're on a 1,500 metre race, but we've decided to walk the first lap, and there's no way we can catch up in the next 2 laps because we've set off so slow. The government really ought to be doing a lot more quickly, even if the direction of travel is the right direction.
And a £5,000 grant still falls considerably short of the cost of installing many heat pumps, which can cost more than double that.
For some consumers, it's going to play a strong incentive, halving the cost of installation for them. But I think for low-income households, it's going to be quite prohibitive. I think that it's still a big jump for them to make.
And then there's the issue of insulation. This thermal imaging camera can be used to show just how badly insulated some of our homes remain, which some say is a big problem if we're converting to heat pumps.
To be honest, having heat pumps in a home that is poorly insulated is like buying a teapot with cracks in it. It's inefficient, it's leaky, and it's a waste of money. So absolutely, alongside this heat pump strategy, we should have had a comprehensive local authority-led street-by-street insulation programme that many of us have been calling for years.
But speaking alongside business leaders at a global investment summit in London today and ahead of the upcoming UN Climate Summit in Glasgow, Boris Johnson said Britain was leading the way on green issues.
The market is going green. And people know that we have the technological solutions to these problems and they want to go green. And they know that we'll be able one day to bring down the prices of green technology, EVs and heat pumps and solar panels, in a way that we so rapidly made microwaves and mobile phones affordable.
And the Prime Minister later announced a £400 million partnership with the Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates to help make green technology more affordable. John Donnison, BBC News.
Let's speak to our energy and environment analyst Roger Harrabin. And Roger, in the Commons in the last few minutes, the government's been setting out more details about its strategy for fighting climate change.
Yes, in the next few weeks, Boris Johnson is going to be welcoming world leaders to Glasgow, to the world's most important climate summit this year. The UK government has set very aggressive targets for cutting emissions, and it now needs to show how it's going to meet those targets. And today's document, a fat document, covers the entire economy and shows how carbon emissions are going to be cut from every point in the economy. Now, of course, critics will say it doesn't go strongly enough, but I have to say that this looks to me like the most advanced plan from any major nation towards how we will actually get round to achieving the emissions cuts that have been so bravely promised.
Roger, thank you very much indeed. Roger Harrabin. And our political correspondent Chris Mason is at Westminster for us this lunchtime. And Chris, the timing of this is important politically and diplomatically just ahead of that COP26 conference in Glasgow.
Yeah, afternoon to you, Ben. It absolutely is, because as you say, politically and diplomatically, it matters for the government, it matters for Boris Johnson hosting that summit as world leaders head to Glasgow for this huge shindig, trying to nail down global promises as far as cutting emissions are concerned. In this document here, published in the last half hour, as we were hearing there from Roger, a sense of how you turn those big promises into reality, and crucially, how you take people with you, how the government tempts people to change behaviour and change behaviour pretty quickly. And what's striking when you look at some of the language being used is how the government is going to attempt to do that. So they talk about their net zero strategy, the name of the document, as building back greener, taking that slogan about building back better and adding a splash of green paint to it, if you like. And also that other mission of the government. They talk, don't they, about wanting to level up, help out communities that feel that they have been left behind. The Prime Minister saying in the foreword to this document that going green is turning a mission into the greatest opportunity for jobs and prosperity for our country since the Industrial Revolution. So the pitch is that this can work economically as well as environmentally. The hope, of course, is that lots of people are willing to change behaviour with the kind of incentives that the government is providing, with the potential for huge cost for the taxpayer, for households, as well as the accompanying faff of changing our livelihoods pretty quickly.
Chris, thank you. Chris Mason, our political correspondent. An inquiry has found that multiple failures by police, prosecutors and council officials meant that child abuse allegations against the late Labour peer, Lord Janner, were not properly investigated. Lord Janner died in 2015, facing criminal charges spanning 3 decades and relating to 9 people who had been in children's homes. He always denied any wrongdoing. Well, our Home Affairs correspondent Tom Simons is in central London. Tom, just bring us up to date.
Well, Ben, that death, Lord Janner's death in 2015, meant that there was no justice for people who made allegations against him, a number which was reached at 33 by the time he died, and also no justice for him because he had no opportunity in court to defend himself. By the time charges were levelled against him, he was suffering from dementia. And this inquiry wasn't to find out whether he is guilty of child abuse, but why those investigations never led to prosecutions earlier. And it found really that generally the people who made the allegations had been in care homes and were not believed or taken seriously because they were not really trusted in what they were saying. There was also something of a culture of deference towards the Leicester MP. And more specifically, the inquiry found that in 2000 there was a key moment. Police officers failed to pass 2 early statements alleging abuse by Lord Janner to prosecutors. The inquiry says that was serious and inexcusable. And then in 2006, a prosecutor decided not to continue investigations, gave advice to the police to that effect. The inquiry said that was unsound and strategically flawed, and that the complainants, the people who made the allegations, were failed by these investigations. Now, the family of Lord Janner stressed today that this inquiry report has no suggestion of any evidence of his guilt, and that he remained to his dying day somebody who denied he was involved in child abuse. And they too say that he was a victim of institutional failings because he wasn't able to have his day in court either.
Tom, thank you. Tom Simons there reporting. 2 children and 2 adults are in hospital after a suspected gas explosion destroyed a house in Ayr last night. Police say that 4 homes were caught up in the blast, which was heard several miles away, and neighbouring properties have been evacuated. Well, our Scotland correspondent Jamie McIver is at the scene. And Jamie, it's a scene of some devastation today.
It is indeed, Ben. All through the morning, residents have been gathering here and sharing their shock, really, at last night's explosion. Many have been telling me how they felt the impact of the blast inside their own home, where perhaps ornaments rattled, or they felt some of the rubble falling and crashing around. Now, in the past hour, the police have confirmed that all 4 of the injured are from the same family. They're a couple and their 2 children, and they're now all in hospital in Glasgow.
1 home destroyed, 3 more badly damaged, and debris hurled across this quiet housing estate. The explosion was so loud it was heard miles away. Neighbours rushed out to see what had happened.
And there was a kid with his leg trapped. There was 2 guys trying to help the kid get out. I just kind of helped a wee bit as well, just to steady him a wee bit. Then another guy ran in a wee bit closer. You can see there was a crack in the house.
The blast happened at 7 o'clock last night. 2 adults and 2 children were taken to hospital. Eyewitnesses described flames shooting into the air.
A family of 4 were taken to hospital. A 43-year-old woman and a 16-year-old boy are currently within Glasgow Royal Infirmary. A 47-year-old male is currently within Queen Elizabeth University Hospital, and an 11-year-old boy is within the Royal Hospital for Sick Children.
This morning, supplies were delivered to help those who had to leave their home. 90 spent the night in rest centres. The local council says some may not be able to go back to their home for several days.
Now, investigations are continuing to try to establish the cause of the explosion. The police and the Fire and Rescue Service are carrying out a joint investigation. Scottish Gas Networks engineers have also been in the site, but there is no confirmation yet that whether or not this was a gas explosion. Still, I think the mood here today, it is one of shock. There is that sense with so much rubble lying around, so much debris on the ground here, that while people's thoughts are with the injured, it would still have been so much worse.
Jamie, thank you. Jamie McIver reporting. The elder brother of the Manchester Arena suicide bomber has left the UK after being ordered to appear this week at the public inquiry into the attack. Ismail Abedi has always refused to answer questions from the inquiry in case he incriminates himself. Well, our correspondent Judith Moritz is in Manchester with the latest for us this lunchtime. Judith.
Yeah, Ben, the Manchester Arena inquiry has just begun its phase of examining why Salman Abedi carried out his attack and how he was radicalised, and as part of that it wants to speak to his family, friends and associates. Well, in the wake of the bombing, Salman Abedi's elder brother Ismail was one of those who was arrested. He was found to possess extremist propaganda, but he was never charged with any offence. Now, he and the Abedi's parents have refused to cooperate with the inquiry. BBC News tracked Ismail Abedi down last year. We found him living in Manchester, and at the time Greater Manchester Police said that their investigation was continuing and they were still seeking to speak to him, and we were expecting Ismail Abedi to come and give evidence here at court this week. But this morning we were told that he has left the country. It's not known when he will return, and if he doesn't appear to give evidence, having been issued with a court order, by the way, to compel him to do so, that if he doesn't appear, the public may infer from that he has something to hide. And some of the bereaved families have told us today that they're extremely angry that Ismail Abedi has been able to go abroad. Now, there's another witness who's also going to be compelled to appear here this week, a friend of Salman Abedi's, Ahmed Tagdi, childhood friend. He was found trying to leave the country last night. He was arrested. He's now in custody. We're told he will be brought here to give evidence later this week.
Judith, thank you. Judith Morris reporting there from Manchester. Government plans that could see MPs face by-elections if they are suspended for sexual harassment or bullying are being debated in the Commons this afternoon. It follows a controversy over the backbench MP Rob Roberts. He was suspended from Parliament for 6 weeks in May for sexual misconduct. A loophole meant he did not face a petition that could trigger a by-election. Labour says the measures should also apply retrospectively. A former soldier who was on trial in Belfast over a fatal shooting during the Troubles has died after contracting COVID. Dennis Hutchings, who was 80, had been charged with the attempted murder of John Pat Cunningham in County Tyrone in 1974. His lawyers had tried to have the case against him thrown out because of his poor health. Well, let's get the latest on this with our Ireland correspondent Chris Page, who's in Belfast. And prosecutors have been defending the decision to bring charges against him.
Yes, that's right, Ben. The prosecution of Dennis Hutchings has been a high-profile case here and also a controversial one given the ongoing debate as to how killings from the Troubles should be investigated. Dennis Hutchings was 80 years old. He was from Cawsand in Cornwall, former member of the Lifeguards Regiment, and he was charged with attempted murder over the killing of John Pat Cunningham in County Tyrone in 1974. John Pat Cunningham was 27, he had learning difficulties and he was shot in the back as he was running away from an army patrol. So Mr Hutchings had been on trial in Belfast Crown Court for the last couple of weeks. He had suffered from serious health problems, including chronic kidney disease and heart failure, and yesterday the trial was adjourned because the court heard Dennis Hutchings had tested positive for COVID-19 and he died in a hospital here in Belfast yesterday afternoon. Now, unionist politicians have said that he shouldn't have been prosecuted in the first place. For example, the leader of the Democratic Unionist Party, Sir Geoffrey Donaldson, has said serious questions must be answered. But the Public Prosecution Service have said that prosecuting Mr Hutchings was in the public interest and that there was new evidence available to the court. John Pat Cunningham's family have said that in due course they will set out their response to the issues around the prosecution of Dennis Hutchings, but they want to, they say, respectfully remind the public of the facts of the case which were not contested during the trial. So a deeply personal story, but also one that will play into the politics of legacy issues in Northern Ireland. The government currently has plans to scrap all prosecutions, all civil court cases related to the conflict, and those plans are opposed by many victims groups and all of the main political parties in the devolved government at Stormont.
Chris, thank you. Chris Page reporting there from Belfast. Police investigating the killing of Sir David Amess have been gathering CCTV from shops and businesses near the home of his alleged killer. CCTV footage from a convenience store in Highgate Road in North London, obtained by the BBC, shows a man believed to be the main suspect in the case walking down Gordon House Road in the direction of Gospel Oak Overground Station. 25-year-old Ali Harbi Ali is being held under the Terrorism Act, and officers have until Friday to question him. The time is exactly 19 minutes past 1. Our top story this lunchtime. The government has been setting out its plans for cutting carbon emissions to zero by 2050, and they include plans for a big push towards electric vehicles. And coming up, keeping history alive, we meet the man who's recreated a 100-metre stretch of First World War trenches in Kent.
Coming up on the BBC News Channel, Manchester City take on Bruges in the Champions League with work to do. They're third in their group after losing to Paris Saint-Germain last time out.
man thought to have had the heaviest kidneys on record, weighing more than 5 stones, has had surgery to remove them. Warren Higgs from Windsor in Berkshire suffers from polycystic kidney disease. The condition causes fluid-filled cysts to grow in the kidneys, and it affects around 1 in 1,000 people, and there is no cure. Our health correspondent Catherine Da Costa has been following Warren's story.
It's crushing my lungs, so I struggle to breathe.
This was Warren Higgs in June. Every major organ was under intense strain.
It's crushing my stomach, so I can't eat a solid meal.
He was diagnosed with polycystic kidney disease more than 20 years ago. It's caused a series of strokes, which has left him paralysed on one side.
It will basically kill me within 6 to 12 months.
You can see here a normal set of kidneys on either side of the spine. Warren's kidneys were covered in cysts full of fluid and took up his whole abdomen. He'd had enough and wanted the organs removed.
The operation itself is dangerous. It's 50-50 chance, but I've got to take it. I've got to do it because it's not a life living on the sofa.
Surgeons discovered Warren's kidneys weighed 35 kilograms. That's nearly 5.5 stone, making it a highly complex operation.
I've never seen anything as big as this. This, I think, would be the reported heaviest kidneys that has been removed anywhere in the world. When everything is distorted and not in the right place, you run the risk of damaging other organs, you run the risk of major hemorrhage.
But Warren took that risk, and from struggling to breathe to building back his strength. This is him 3 months after surgery. How are you feeling?
A lot better. Yeah, a lot better. I can breathe. I can eat little bits. No, definitely a lot better.
How was that? Hard. That's smashed my record.
He's dependent on dialysis 3 times a week, but is hoping to be added to the transplant waiting list by the end of the year.
It would mean everything. If I had a kidney, I would just be able to do anything, do all my sports. Yes, I will have to take more tablets, but I'm free to get on with my life. That would be so amazing for me. It really would.
That report from our health correspondent Catherine Da Costa. The European Union is sending emergency coronavirus aid to Romania, which, according to one estimate, is recording one of the highest number of COVID deaths per million people in the world. Romania's intensive care units are full and some patients are being transferred for treatment into neighbouring Hungary. Mark Lebel reports.
Inside Romania's overwhelmed intensive care units, a country in a COVID critical condition. Outside some hospitals, medical staff make space. Romania's vaccination campaign chief says the Eastern European country is experiencing the same scenario Italy's Lombardy region suffered last year. Patients pile up in this hospital corridor waiting for treatment. Volunteers are stepping up.
I don't know whether I will resist the fourth wave entirely, whether I will have the energy to do it. This wave is terrible, the most severe one.
Things are so full here, Romania is now transferring some of its COVID-19 patients to neighbouring Hungary.
We notice a daily average of approximately 15,000 infected people. We have a daily average, unfortunately, of 300 deaths.
One major reason for all this, Romania has the second lowest vaccination rate in the EU.
Some 90% of the hospitalised patients are not vaccinated.
I'm not vaccinated. I was afraid of the vaccine. I'll see after I get better. I want to get vaccinated.
EU countries have started sending COVID-19 drugs and equipment to treat patients here. But with around 2/3 of the country unvaccinated and a fortnight of rising cases, some already warn of a 5th wave of the pandemic, hitting Romania even before this 4th one is under control. Mark Lobel, BBC News.
Well, meanwhile, here in the UK, a leading government scientific advisor says the COVID booster programme has to be accelerated. COVID cases in the UK are at their highest level for almost 3 months, and Professor Neil Ferguson has said that immunity is waning. Let's get the latest from our health correspondent, Jim Reid, who's with me now. And Jim, Professor Ferguson saying that having been a world leader on vaccinations, we may now be slipping behind.
That's right. So Professor Ferguson was part of the team whose data was very influential in convincing ministers to go ahead with the first lockdown last year. He's been speaking this morning, talking about these third booster jabs for the over 50s, saying they need to be accelerated. And there's a good reason for that. If we look at a chart here of daily cases across the UK, you'll be able to see on the right-hand side there, it's been rising across the UK, except really in Scotland. Number of reasons for that, more mixing, particularly inside. We're still seeing the highest rates of infection, though, in secondary school-aged children. And in England, there's been some criticism about the speed of the vaccine rollout for that school-age group. Now, in the last hour or so, we've been told that rather than just giving jabs in school, children in England will soon be able to sign up as normal through the same online booking portal as adults, which is what some people had been calling for. Now, that's already the case in Scotland, and in the last, this morning, in the last couple of hours, they've issued new guidance for mask wearing as well for pupils in Scotland, saying they should continue to wear masks in school in Scotland for the time being. So that's cases. If we look ahead, though, at hospitalisations, the number of people being admitted, you'll see here it's still relatively flat, and that's because the vaccine has continued to do its job. Most hospitalisations still in the over 70s, which is why you're seeing that call from Professor Ferguson and others today saying we need to get ahead with that booster campaign for that group to better protect people this winter.
Jim, thank you. Jim Reid, our health correspondent. Tesco has opened its first supermarket in the UK without any checkouts. Cameras and weight sensors will work out which items customers have picked up from the store in central London, then bill them through the company's app. The new format follows similar stores opened in London by Amazon. Now, a field trip to learn about the grim realities of the First World War would traditionally involve a journey to the former battlefields of Belgium or northern France. Now you can stay a bit closer to home thanks to a new history project in Kent, as Fiona Lambdin reports.
It's over 100 metres long and 2 metres deep. It's a World War I replica based on the trenches near Ypres, built 100 years later in a forest in Kent. And it's Europe's only accurate outdoor replica, according to its designer, Andy Robertshaw, who's a military historian. His grandfather John fought in the First World War.
He was a private soldier between 1916 and 1919. Wounded twice, gassed twice. I mean, if he died in the Great War, I'm not here.
And it's not his first. He built 4 trenches, including this one in his garden.
Come on your ladders, boys, on your ladders.
As well as historian, he's also a Hollywood film advisor, working with Steven Spielberg. Here he is in 2011, blowing the whistle in Warhorse. Now it's for schools and the army to learn about the realities of war. And today the trench is full of 11-year-old boys rehearsing their school play.
It shows how gruesome and dirty it has been for them, and it shows how strong they must have been to carry on even in them difficult times without their families.
So these pouches were to hold the ammunition. Each soldier could carry up to 150 rounds of ammunition.
They also learn about food rationing and ammunition.
Just been cold and terrifying straight away from the beginning to start you're here, and the food wasn't great. You'd have to make it last. You got tins of bully beef, but I wouldn't eat all that at one time. I'd make it last as long as possible.
20 metres behind the front line, this was the officers' dugout deep underground. This is where they slept, where they played cards. This was the hub. The meals came in here, the ammunition, and this is how they contacted each other up and down the lines. Everything came through here.
And above ground, they've got ambitious plans, hoping to build a German trench the other side of no man's land.
Scotland's cricketers are back in action at the 2020 World Cup in Oman today after an excellent win against Bangladesh at the weekend. A victory today for Scotland against Papua New Guinea would put them in a strong position to qualify for the main tournament. Well, batting first, they made 165 runs, with Richie Berrington top scoring with 70, and a short time ago, in reply, Papua New Guinea were 46 for 5. A 900-year-old sword that is thought to have belonged to a Crusader knight has been found by an amateur diver off the coast of Israel. Although it was covered in marine life, the metre-long sword was distinctive enough to be noticed as the sands shifted, and officials say the sword will be put on display after it's been cleaned and restored. Right, let's get the latest weather forecast for you now. Darren Bett is here with me. Hi, Darren.
Hello there, Ben. A lot of cloud heading our way once again today, and there's even a bit of rain in the air too, and that's because the air has travelled over 1,500 miles to get to the UK, coming all the way from the tropics, a long sea track which is picking up all that moisture, but bringing some warmth, especially where we're getting some sunshine across parts of southeast England and East Anglia. Temperatures more typical of early summer. Even elsewhere where there's more cloud and some rain around, it's still very mild for the time of year. It should be turning much drier in Scotland. Some sunshine coming through in Northern Ireland. Still got some rain across western parts of England and Wales. And overnight, that rain is going to slip towards the southeast of England. Clearer skies following from large parts of the UK. A few showers knocking about. Some heavy thundery ones later in the southwest of England and also South Wales. Quite mild again for southern parts of the UK, but cooler than last night further north, where we got clearer skies and some sunshine on the way for tomorrow. But we've got these clusters of thundery downpours pushing northwards and eastwards across England and Wales tomorrow. Wetter weather clinging on to northern England in the afternoon. Some sunshine either side of that. Rain in the far northwest and some showers returning into the far southwest of England. Mild day tomorrow, not quite as mild as today. The highest temperatures will again be towards the southeast of England and East Anglia. But by the time we get into Thursday and Friday, the rest of the week will be feeling much colder, very different from what we're feeling at the moment. We've still got some wetter weather to move away on Wednesday night, particularly wet for a while across southern parts of England and Wales. And then that cold front moves down, not much rain on that, but behind it the wind direction changes and we draw air all the way down from the Arctic, so it will feel much, much colder. Still some rain to clear around the east coast, southern coast of England. Otherwise, Thursday we'll see some sunshine, some showers blown in towards the northwest, and those could be of a wintry flavour over the high ground. It's going to be a windy day on Thursday. This time the winds are coming more from the north, could be touching gale force around some North Sea coast, combined with some spring tides as well. And these are the temperatures we're looking at. It's going to feel chilly. 8-9 degrees northern Scotland, a high this time of 13 in the south of England and Wales. And that chilly air still in place, I think, as we head into Friday. This little ridge of high pressure just nosing in from the Atlantic will kill off a lot of those showers, but probably bring more cloud to western parts of the UK. That's where we've got most of the showers. Further east, some sunshine to come. The winds won't be as strong on Friday, but it's still quite chilly air. Temperatures 11 to 14 degrees, and that feels quite a bit cooler than all this mild weather that we've got at the moment. Remember, 21, maybe even 22 degrees, where we get some sunshine towards the southeast. Ben.
Darren, many thanks indeed. Darren Bett there. And a reminder of our top story this lunchtime. The government sets out its plans for cutting carbon emissions to zero by 2050, and they include a big push towards electric vehicles. That is all from the BBC News at 1, so it's goodbye from me, and on BBC One now, we'll join the BBC's news teams where you are. Have a very good afternoon.